Oh boy. I'm fully prepared for nobody be here today, just so everybody knows. Wednesday, April 5th, 2023. This is the updated Ecamm Live. Welcome everybody to the C47's channel. It's another week, and it's about a week and a half leading up to a tiny little show called NAB. Who we got in the chat? Let's say hello to people. DJ Succotash is all over this thing. Thaddeus is here. We're an hour later than normal, and it's absolute chaos over here. So I appreciate anybody who's coming by. Caleb didn't go live today. I don't think he did. We're probably at one person, two people tops. We'll see how we get along here. I know I have to post our challenge, and that is on my list. Here, let's tell Siri something. Set alarm for 10:40 a.m. to post Cameron Flask challenge. There it is. It's done. David's here. What's going on? Big cooking, big packing, big shooting. Lots of questions there. 4 questions in a row from DJ Succotash. I would say big cooking, yes, last weekend, but not today. I made fondant potatoes for the first time, if you know what those are. I didn't. They came out well. And big packing, yes, it's absolute chaos behind me on the floor, especially, though there's stuff here getting ready for the NAB workshops. Hey, Rick. Hey, Sam. And big packing, yes, that part. And then big shooting, yes, too. Getting ready for a production post-NAB, so that's happening. And yes, Canon has a new high sensitivity camera in development. Wouldn't say that it's a camera for the work that we normally do, but it is still an interesting camera. And there you have it. Let's see if there's any other comments here. Okay, good. So we'll hang out for a while. I don't know if it'll be a full hour today, but I did want to just touch base with everybody, get everybody's take on what they think is going to happen at the show. Housekeeping wise, just understand that the next couple of weeks are going to be a little strange on this channel. They're always a little strange on this channel. But first of all, no episode next Wednesday. And that is because I will be in transit, traveling to Las Vegas for the show, and then going to the location for the workshop, so on and so forth. And then there will be an episode of Camera and Flask from NAB. My guess is it's going to happen on Tuesday, April 18th, probably in the afternoon. It won't be on Wednesday because that also is another transit day. That's what I got for you. David, how are you? What's going on with everybody else? Any production questions that we have? Any things that people want to go over related to anything that they're working on, that they have questions on, they're trying to figure out? I know that as far as, at least as far as I know, Caleb didn't have his helpline. So if there's any questions people have regarding equipment or production, or they're thinking about anything for an upcoming production, let me know. I'm happy to answer. Best if you put an @the_C47 at the beginning of your question in the chat. And just sort of browsing today, the News Shooter and the CineD websites. Hey, David. There's, a few new things. Obviously, the Aperture MC Pro has now officially been announced. It was teased almost a year ago at NAB. And yeah, there you go. DJ Succotash, I wanted to tell Caleb I bought the keyboard he uses, and it's Friday. I'm in love. How's it Friday? That part I'm confused by, but I'm glad you're in love with it. And I'm assuming maybe you got it last Friday. I don't know. What else do we have on the interwebs? Looking for talent for these workshops. not from everybody here on the channel, but that's another challenge I have going on. But I'm just gonna quickly browse and see what happens. We got these new Canon lenses, which are kind of interesting. Teradek Micro, Ranger Micro and Ranger 2, higher transmission range wireless systems. Let's see what else we've got that's interesting. No, the MS500 interchangeable lens camera from Canon, which is very specific. And one more on Cine D. I don't think there's anything much to mention, but I'll take a peek after all the pop-ups go away. Let's see. No, MC Pro, you know, firmware updates coming from Canon on a few of their cameras, which is good. And I think most of the other things aren't very interesting to have a conversation about. Oh, sorry, DJ Sarkatash. I should have known. I'm kind of back on a Cure kick right now. I think A Forest is probably still my favorite track, but now I'm tracking with you, and they still sound great. You know, Robert Smith, he still, you know, he does that thing with this. I mean, I'm always doing this, but he's always does this, and he's always uncomfortable and stuff. But they're just brilliant. I think they're great. And I know nothing about this Royal Kludge keyboard, but I'm glad it's delightful. Rick just upgraded to a refurbished iPad Pro 3rd Gen. What an improvement from my iPad version 3 using Capture One tethered to a Fuji X-H1 for stills. Awesome. Do you like the Capture One iOS app? Not something I've used. I use Capture One on a Mac, but not on an iOS device. Good. Very nice. Anything else? Good. Yeah, Cure's on the road right now. Tears for Fears, Depeche Mode. It's like when I was growing up. I saw Tears for Fears twice. I never saw Depeche Mode in concert, unfortunately. I did see Duran Duran. And who else is on tour right now? Well, we just had New Order, Pet Shop Boys, like double billed tour. That would have been fun to go see. It's like the 80s all over again, except for everybody has gray hair. And most of them still sound really good. I will say that Depeche Mode sounding pretty good right now. New album's pretty good too. Just listened to it last week. There we go. Got it, Rick, with the feedback there. So what else is going on? Do we have any production questions? Anybody trying to figure something out that they want to sort in the next little while? And this is the time where we say Paul Oakenfold did open. I don't know for every date, but he did open for sure. I don't know if he did in the US, or maybe it was in the US that he opened. So, yeah, this is the time where you say the show's a week and a half away. So if you're thinking about making a big purchase, maybe you hold off. And sometimes that's a complete dud in certain years, meaning you think there are going to be all of these huge announcements that happen, and then they don't. And then other times you think it's going to be a quiet year and there's big stuff. Interested to see what happens with Blackmagic. Hopefully they have some new stuff. I don't know what Aperture will have. I know Deity has some stuff that's coming out, so I'm interested to see what that is in the audio space. Always interested in that space. And yeah. Ooh, you shot the Pet Shop Boys New Order gig. The new tour. Interested to hear about that. So that'd be pretty cool. And unfortunately, when I'm out of this area in the Pacific Northwest, the Tears for Fears tour is coming through just when I'm gone. So that sucks. DJ Succotash says, at the C47, is it crazy to go with a 28mm lens for a host shot? Would that look too wacky distorted or not so much so if the camera is not too close? I would say absolutely not a wacky distorted thing at all. I think that once you're sort of in that 27, 28mm up to about, I'm going to say 55mm range, that's a pretty big spread, but I would say that that's sort of your normal-ish range, right? You get to about 28mm, it's still considered wide, especially on a full-frame camera. But to me, in terms of the shape of somebody's face and things like that, I think that that's a fine focal length. You're talking 7mm off. On the wide end, that can make a big difference. You think about let's say a 10mm lens and an 18mm lens, and that can be pretty drastic. But I think once you start getting into that range of 28 to about 55mm, that's sort of where you're not noticing huge distortion in terms of the person's and the shape of the person's face. Yeah. And David, I have not tried yet. The anchor, it's pretty simple math, actually. The anchor is, it's about an 87 to 88. It's it's not like a fixed. I think it's 87.5. Hold on. It's got tiny writing that is made for people who, let's see, it's an 86.4 watt-hour battery. So, and it definitely outputs enough for 100 watt, for that Molus 100. So the answer is at full power, you're going to get a little less than an hour with the 100 watt, and you're going to get over an hour with the 60. Obviously, if you're powering both of them at the same time, then that's a little bit of an issue. Do I drone? I drone a little, Rick. Not much. I'm going to probably go for the Part 107 this year. I have a Mini 3 Pro over there, and I've flown it a few times, but nothing commercial. I've hired a lot of drone operators. DJ, 27mm on a crop sensor or 40mm on a full frame, from an angle of view standpoint, it's still my favorite. I think it's kind of how I see the world, and a lot of people see things a little bit differently. Some people are 35mm, some people are 40. I'm talking full frame. But in terms of field of view, not depth of field, that 27, 28 is pretty close to about that 40. So I love that. To me, not too wide. So I don't know if you're going full frame. I'm assuming you are, but there you go. They may embargo electronics, such as the ones from DJI, but I don't know. And I, like everybody, or many people, say DJI many times, but it's DJI, and not that you wrote that incorrectly. Is that a jar of ether? This one right here, this is water with Nellie's lime juice, key lime juice. I guess it's key. I don't know. It's the somewhat equivalent of putting half a lemon in your water. I try to drink a lot of water. Got to hydrate, and remember to do that at NAB, which I forget to do. Hopefully that's an answer to you, David, on runtime. I've answered the do you drone. Ether that or hooch. Haha, pun intended. And no, this week is not a buy. Next week is a buy. So I'm traveling next week, and then we'll fit in a Cameron Flask the following week, the week of the 17th, and then probably back to regularly scheduled stuff the week after that. We'll see how it goes. There you go. All right. So other questions. That was a good one, DJ. I'd like to know why DJ Succotash, and also, yeah, that'd be good to hear. So what do we got question-wise? And we'll see. This may wind up being a half-hour show. It may go longer than that. It really is all dependent upon the chat here. That's what's going to drive this week, I have to say, because I am treading water at best, but always want to stay connected. I'm always happy to jump on and talk about things. And I'm here for you. That's all I got to say. If you want to make some predictions about the show, great. What is happening here? George E. Kennedy Jr., it's been a million years, and you're coming to say hi, and I appreciate it. Maybe it's because we're an hour later, or maybe for some other reason. I want to know, George, are you coming to NAB? Because I haven't seen your beautiful mug in a long, long time. George has been in the industry for a long, long time, like myself. Has a lot of experience in a lot of areas of production. So DJ Succotash says, basically, I usually shoot the host links we do on a 50, but a client wants to see more kitchen, so I got to go wide to show more off. Yeah. I mean, it's a pretty typical shot for a cooking show. So, I mean, obviously you can see the whole kitchen if your space is deep enough on a 50, but I think that 28 will work out well. And again, just curious if you're going on a 35 millimeter or a crop APS-C / super 35 millimeter sensor. We are doing a Cameron Flask from Vegas. We don't know when, but most likely Tuesday, the 18th in the afternoon. So that's the deal. But George, you got to tell me if you're going to be there. Hopefully we can bump into each other and say hi. And just as a reminder to everybody, we are meeting between the Central and South Halls outside at noon on Monday, April 17th for 1 hour. And then it might run slightly longer. I know I have a 2 o'clock meeting. Caleb, a different Caleb, Grundison, looking forward to see if Canon releases a C200 Mark II. I wouldn't count on it. I would be very surprised if they do, but I would be pleasantly surprised. I'm not aware of it, but you never know with these companies. Ono got the Tamron, 17 to 50. Hasn't used it yet. Interested to hear about it. Nice that it's a 2.8. Got it. You're on an MFT, but the speed booster remaps the image to an effective full frame. Yep. Gotcha. Yeah, so that 28 should be fine. So, oh no, outside means outside. So it's between Central and South Hall, and there's an outside area. It used to be that that's where all the satellite trucks and things were. Last year, in particular, it was very empty out there, but there's always food trucks selling $25 beers and $25 hamburgers or whatever they're doing. So we're just going to meet out there, and I think it'll be pretty simple. You'll see two shortish people, myself and Ben, and one slightly taller person, Caleb, and we'll all be hanging out, and we'll make sure we get out there at noon. So David says, how about you? Looking forward to for any time tequilas. I don't know about tequilas. I'm looking forward to what I always look forward to, which is seeing old friends. And that sounds very, little tiny violin or whatever it is. Though tiny violins are usually for, oh, poor me. But I'm looking forward to finding things that I'm not expecting. I mean, if I were walking the show floor and I had seen this X100 and this G60, I would say, oh, that would be something I would have talked about after the show, because I feel like they're doing something a little bit different in terms of form factor and what you can do. I understand why they're including the power supplies with these, but to me, the magic of these lights is that they can be USB-C powered over power delivery. And of course their size or lack thereof. So, you know, this is truly a pocketable light. Decent sized pocket, but not a huge pocket, and it's 100-watt COB. So I'm kind of digging what they're doing there. So I'm hoping to find some things at the show that are in that category of I didn't think, you know, that was going to come to market, or somebody created something that is a surprise. I'm always hopeful that there's going to be a new camera or cameras released, but you have no idea until you get to the show. I think Sony has sort of filled out, for the most part, though there's still things they could do, their mirrorless camera line. It's pretty strong right now, especially with last week's announcement. Whether they touch that FX6, FX9, you know, and create the FX 7.5, I doubt it. Yeah, so I don't know. So, is the 90D a crap sensor? I rented one and wasn't impressed. You mean Canon? Is that what it is? The Canon 90D? I don't know what you mean. Maybe I'm just losing my mind here. I don't know if it's a crap sensor, but I don't know. Somebody's calling me. Oh, not answering that right now. I'm on a live stream. So just let me know, Rick, what you're asking about. And then David, to finish up that. No, I mean, it's really just finding things on the floor. Last year was a really odd year, but also great in some ways because it was the first time people were coming back to the show. But what was interesting about it is that in the central hall, there's usually this entire area of the show where a lot of the smaller to mid-sized Chinese companies, I mean, there's a lot of Chinese companies in this space, but the smaller ones are usually there. And you can usually find some really interesting things. A lot of it's copycat type products, but there's usually a few things in that area that you can find that's a little bit more, well, outside of the norm of what everything is. So I'm hoping we see some of that from Chinese and Korean companies. Tends to be mostly Chinese with some Korean companies. And yeah, so I don't know. There's generally, yeah. And then tell me what you mean by if there's an embargo. Holy heck, that's a lot of products off the market for production. Maybe I'm just not tracking with that one. So if you can clarify that comment, DJ, that would be great. Just so that I totally am tracking with what you're saying. So yeah, I mean, I'm hoping, but, oh, I understand. Yeah, if there's an embargo against China, that would be a lot of, yeah. I don't see it in the nearish future. I think it would have to be a major change for something to happen like that. Like, I mean, I hate to say it, but if China invaded Taiwan, I think that there would be a backlash that would have to do with that. So I think it's going to take something of that magnitude to have that happen, because obviously politically China and the United States are worlds apart in many ways, but we all know that product development and product creation, shipment, everything, it's just sort of that thing that exists between the two countries that it's going to take, take a lot of stuff. So I don't know. Whoa, this is going in another direction with Ono's comment about planning uh, a war with China by 2025. I don't know. I don't know. I can't even begin to guess or worry about that at this point. I think there's so many factors going on in the world that we don't have control over. There's a lot of theories about things. And then, of course, AI will rapidly develop in a way that none of us know exactly how and what the impact will be. The only thing that's certain when it comes to AI is that A, it will replace a lot of jobs, and B, it will be used by our community creatively, but there will be lots of discussions from an ethics and copyright and ownership standpoint. So it's a hard call. And, you know, I generally leave religion, politics, and science out of this channel because it can get pretty messy. And it's probably a good idea to continue to do that. But when we're talking about the transfer of goods, we're sort of in this place, at least right now with China, where sometimes it's cheaper to buy something on an eBay or, you know, on eBay if you're not going to get it from Amazon, which just gets a tremendous amount of their products from China anyway. And it will get here in similar time and sometimes be cheaper for it to get here. But the return process and that kind of stuff can be very tricky. So I don't know. I don't know if AI is starting to become a non-supper table conversation point. It crosses over into the science side of it, but I think it's going to impact us from a work and business standpoint enough that, and it's also, you know, there's a fair number of products on the market when you look at what's happening with text to video, text to images, it'll be image to image, you know, all of those things are happening that they cross over into areas of what we do in terms of content creation that I think the conversation about AI and how it can affect us as an industry is definitely something that we should be talking about. I think that the other side of it, when you're thinking about it from a personal standpoint, when it comes to you, your loved ones, your family, and things like that, that's a whole different conversation in terms of what your concerns are. I mean, I have I have kids that are in college. I have a kid that's in high school, and my concerns in those areas are about them and how that affects them in terms of, you know, the ability to get a job, what jobs they should be looking for. Very quickly, without getting into it outside of our industry too much, I think that being in a trade isn't a bad thing to think about going forward. I mean, I think that when you talk about job security, it may not interest me in terms of where I'm going. It may not even interest my children in any way, but somebody who is going into a trade, a plumber, an electrician, a carpenter, you know, somebody who's in the building industry, sure, certain things and certain aspects of that may get replaced by AI in the future. But I think that being in a trade is not a bad thing. Not that it ever was, but from the standpoint of security, somebody who knows how to come to a house and fix you know, your plumbing is probably going to have a job for a long time. Rick punched his brother in the nose over AI last Thanksgiving. Interesting. I don't know when to know. Maybe. That's pretty funny, DJ. There you go. So beautiful. So DJ Rick in terms of stuff. What else? So AI in terms of our industry, it'll be interesting to see how it evolves. I think that from the standpoint of it being a tool for us to use to create content, it will be, and it will rapidly develop. There'll be a lot of conversations about, do we trust anything when it comes to imagery, still or motion in the future? The answer is probably going to be no. But when it comes to producing content with messaging that has a marketing or a branding bent to it, then I think, that's going to be business as usual, but we'll be using those tools for certain aspects of it. Oh no, I don't want AI to discover the pathway to Boston Dynamics, because then we're in Terminator territory. But we'll see what happens. It's going to be messy. There's definitely some growing pains here, and we'll see how it all goes. I don't know how it's going to go, but I'm hoping there's at least a semblance of responsibility that will be taken by the industry that is creating and managing and policing all of this stuff. But I don't have high hopes. But I'm still going to be a glass half full kind of person when it comes to AI for the time being, until I wake up one day and it's a mess. Is there any instances of AI for post workflow scenarios as opposed to creative? I'm more interested in that. I mean, it depends on how you're defining the AI. There's and have been some post-production solutions out there. Lumberjack for editing, I think, is really AI based. Obviously, transcription is also and can be AI based. I can see a lot of applications for audio being used for AI. So if Isotope is smart, and they're a pretty smart company, if they get into some things related to their products and applying AI to those, it's that constant learning of the machine that makes AI both incredibly exciting and also terrifying at the same time, because the machine learns quickly. If it's fed the right data and it's cross-referencing the right databases of information, it can very rapidly, we can see this with Midjourney, it can rapidly jump in terms of its capabilities. Part of that is, of course, they're releasing Midjourney 5, and Midjourney 4 had its limitations. So part of it is the coding and sort of the way the system works. But a lot of it is the input-output part of it, primarily the input in terms of, what you're feeding those prompts as, and then how it then uses those prompts to go out and compare, combine, and create new works. So I think we'll see a lot of stuff going on. Yeah. Yes. So yeah. So what else would you be looking at, DJ, in terms of AI for post workflows? Will it replace an editor completely in the future? Probably not, because I think that inherently that is what makes us unique, are the things that are subjective, right? And will AI become subjective at a certain point? It's possible, but I think that it doesn't necessarily, the thing about AI is it's not always going to match up with what you want to do creatively. And we tend to, as human beings, change our minds creatively sometimes within an instant. We might think that we want a sound to be a certain sound, or for a cut in a timeline to be a certain cut. But then when we watch it, we realize that's not exactly what we were looking for, even if what we're seeing on the screen is exactly what we envisioned. So that's going to be a big part of the conversation. And I think that it's a huge benefit to us to be able to go and shoot a job for a week and then pull all of that stuff in and not pay X number of dollars per minute for a human being to do a transcription in terms of the dialogue and everything. But there's other aspects of it that I don't think can be replaced, at least right now. I'm a never say never person. I'm a glass half full person, but at the same time, I think that it's that subjective creative impulse and the fact that it changes, it's so fluid for artists that will make some parts of AI extremely useful and take the time consuming part out of it. I mean, you can already see this with Skylum and some of these other companies. You know, you take a photograph in Prague and you've got, you know, wires and, electricity lines and everything, and they're all over the place. And you can put that through AI and it can just automatically remove that stuff. That's incredibly useful. You know, having AI for roto, I think, is going to be incredibly useful. It's not incredibly useful for the person who's spent their career learning that skill and is being hired to do roto work, but it's incredibly advantageous to the people like us who aren't doing that on a day in, day out basis, and we need to solve that problem. So it's the stuff to me that takes the mundane stuff out of the picture. So, okay, we shot something and the audio is not perfect. We push the audio through AI, it cleans it up, and it's 90 to 95%, or maybe 100% there. Scott, I can't wait to see you. Remember, Monday, 12 noon between Central and South Halls outside, if you're around then. Otherwise, just ping me and we'll get together. So I think it's that stuff. It's the stuff that's so time consuming for all of us that, you know, it takes us away from the creative. And that's the stuff that I want AI to really, you know, come in and help us with. So it frees me up creatively to either have more time to try other things or to just be creative. And that's always the trick. You know, you drop stuff into a timeline, you edit it. I tend to cut to a music bed or music if it's appropriate to the project. So I'm usually choosing that ahead of time. But having the ability to, you know, cut something and then have it analyze and kind of get a sense for what type of scene or scenes there are there and sort of the mood of it and everything else. If AI could analyze that and then put temp tracks under that based on looking at, you know, 10,000 feature films that have been made in the past, that could be really interesting, you know, and that implementation. And then how do you tweak it? How much flexibility do you have as the user to take what it's done and then say, I want to tweak that. So it's that kind of stuff that I think is going to help. I mean, I think we have a lot of AI in our smartphones already when it comes to our camera systems. When we pick up most mirrorless cameras, it's even in auto mode, a lot of what you're trying to do requires you to have at least a good working knowledge of how a camera works. But when you use a smartphone and you use the camera app, there's a lot of stuff that it's looking at. And it's when you take a photograph, it's got a database and it's saying, okay, I'm going to create the best quality version of this. I don't know. I don't know how far we go with our camera systems and how far we want those camera systems to go, you know, but that new Sony camera from last week, the Vlogger camera, has a lot of AI built into it. It's going to make a lot of decisions for you if you want it to. but it can still be a fully manual camera system. To me, that's kind of best of both worlds. I'll say this, I've said it before. I think the more knowledge you have of a particular subject matter, the better you can take advantage of the advancements and the changes for that technology. So people will be very happy 10 years from now picking up whatever piece of equipment it is and just letting it make decisions. But that's not creativity. And not creativity in the same way I was talking about in post-production, where you're taking the mundaneness out of what you're doing so that you can focus more on creativity. So, I think in a lot of ways, a good example in terms of production of, if you want to call it AI, even though it's not really AI, though it's starting to get that way with some of the things, is autofocus. We're probably not more than 2 or 3 years away from having what could be considered completely reliable AF systems in new cameras. And when I say completely reliable, it means that it's very when I say completely reliable, what I mean is that you're going to be able to shoot something, and the AI part of it is going to know as it sees somebody moving, or somebody is a lot of gray matter, so there isn't a lot of contrast, this and that. It has enough information in the database to say, this is a scenario that I've seen before, and this is how I'm going to handle it, and it's still going to nail focus. So you're going to be able to shoot any type of content at a 2.8, at a longer focal length, and still keep the person in focus and rely upon that. Does that replace a focus puller? No, it doesn't, because the difference there, though maybe eventually, but the difference there is that when you get into narrative work and you have multiple actors and there's different types of blocking and this and that, it would probably take more time to tell the system what is happening in that situation than to actually have a focus puller just go ahead and make marks and pull focus. But never say never. I don't know. Ono says, if the camera could learn your exposure preferences while you work in manual mode and then apply that to AI mode, giving you the exposure you would have set manually, that would be crazy. Yes, but I don't think crazy. I think that is what the advantage of AI is. It's got to have a baseline, and it has to have information fed into it so it can learn and produce a result based on that. Just look at the difference between Midjourney 5 results when you feed it prompts and Adobe's new solution, and they're on other ends of the spectrum. It shows you that one size does not fit all. It's not apples to apples. It's really different. I don't know about the one size fits all analogy. I think that was baloney, but the apples to apples one makes sense. Sometimes stuff comes out of your, at least for me, out of my mouth, and then I realize that didn't really make sense. So yeah, I think we, we're getting to that point where we'll see pretty quickly where AI and AI's advantages can be. And I think we're, I don't know. I think we're going to see a lot of things come out. And maybe that's, having this conversation is really one of the things that I'm going to be looking at. I'm still very interested in virtual production, and I can't wait for that to come down to sort of our level where it's not, in a volume at that scale, so on and so forth. But so virtual production is really interesting to me at the affordable scale and how that gets integrated. But I think we're going to have more than just Unreal Engine in order for that to happen. And then, of course, we're going to need lower cost portable volumes, that are, 10, 15 feet wide, 8, 10 feet high, that will allow us to do certain things. So I think virtual production and AI based stuff will be the things that I'll probably be looking for the most and paying attention to at the show. Because I think this is a year where it's not the year of AI, it's not the year of virtual production yet, but I think we're getting close to seeing that, and there'll definitely be seeds of that at NAB, and we'll have to see where companies take things like Resolve, Creative Cloud as a whole, Final Cut Pro. So I don't know. Yeah, who will? We know that Scott, who popped in for a minute, is going to be at NAB. I know Ono's going to be there. Anybody else going to be at the show? I'm pretty sure it's more than just I just not keeping track of that with everything that's going on. So good to hear that. And then we'll be back in less than 2 weeks with something. I don't know if it'll be a full hour, but I think the whole purpose of the NAB show is to do something where we're talking about some of the favorite stuff that we have. So I might also do a couple of shorts from the floor. So I might post some stuff on the YouTube channel here or on Insta or both that just sort of cover some stuff. It probably makes the most sense for me to do it on YouTube, but I'll check it out. But I'm hoping there's going to be like 3 to 6 things that just really excite me that I want to talk about. And sometimes those are things that don't excite anybody else. Caleb and I have talked about that in the past, that there's certain times where you have that stuff. Rick's sending his robot to NAB, so I'll look out for your robot. And I think we're going to wrap it up. Pleasure as always. We're about close to the 50-minute mark, so we did get close to the hour. If there's anything else anybody wants to throw out before we end this one, remember that we're back the week of April 17th with Cameron Flask from NAB. Monday, April 17th specifically, from 12 to 1, we will be outside between Central and South Halls, hanging out, drinking leaded and unleaded drinks, and bring your hats, bring your water, bring comfortable shoes if you're coming to the show, and pleasure as always. Thanks for coming by an hour later and having a chat, and tell people about the channel. If you're new, I don't think there is anybody here that's new, then subscribe, all that stuff for notifications, and see everybody at the show, either in person or virtually when we do our episode. Thanks, everybody. See you later. Bye.